somebody's going to be on the hook for some sort of innovation, and that innovation is going to fail. And when it fails, we have to make sure we fail fast and we fail in corridors that doesn't hurt the business.
And we get excited. We need to pause for a moment, and always ask why.
The successful SaaS that I think don't just sell the product.
We always have to understand where we are heading to, because if we don't know where we're heading, there's no way we can guide correctly.
We have to be a catalyst between the client and the business side and of course the technology.
So welcome to the first session of the day, and the session is called a Solution Architect of the Future. Skills, solutions, specialists, and sales engineers will need in 2026, right? So I will be, so my name is Fabien, I'm the founder and CEO of HirePlanner.com. I'm not a solution architect, but I work with solution architects and I try to create solutions. So I'll do my best to facilitate today. And before that even, I actually did look up the definition to make sure that I get this right. So the solution architect is the person who designs the overall technical solution to solve a business problem. They connect the business needs with the technology, making sure all the systems, tools, and teams work together smoothly and are compliant and secure. That's a short. So basically what I understood is they decide what data to store, how to organize it, how to access it, how to secure it, how to use it, how to evaluate the risks. So it seems like a very big job. And with the rise of AI, I guess it adds more and more complexity. So I'm really excited not to talk about this topic because I will leave it to the experts. But I'm really excited today, and I would like to introduce you to our three speakers. First of all, please help me welcome Shingo Kitayama-san, who is the Principal Specialist Solution Architect at Red Hat, Japan. He's leading the enterprise cloud-native transformation strategies. He's got an extensive experience and worked at Rakuten and HP in Japan before joining Red Hat. He's an expert in hybrid cloud strategy and cloud-native architecture. He's a technical thought leader, driving digital transformation from both the technology side and the business perspective as well. He's an author and also a speaker, contributing to the Japan technology ecosystem. And his hobby is attending live shows. So it's really good because this is the platform. We didn't actually prepare for this, but that's a nice segue. So please help me give a round of applause to Shingo Kitayama-san from Red Hat. Thank you. And second, we have Leo Linder, who's coming all the way from the US. He's the founder and CEO of Emerge AI, part of the Emerge Global Group. He supports companies with their AI transformation and enterprise innovation. He's a serial entrepreneur with a strong track record over the last 25 years, experience in building and scaling global ventures in the technology sector. He's a specialist in AI strategy, data analysis, digital transformation, and emerging technologies. He's passionate about bridging technology, business, and humans to shape the future of work. And he's passionate about cycling, mountaineering, and adventure sports. So please help me welcome Leo Linder. Thank you, Leo, for coming. And last but not least, we've got Atsuya Yamakawa-san, who is a senior solution consultant at Workato Japan. He's supporting enterprise clients with digital transformation initiative, specialist in bridging business needs and technical solutions. His expertise is on enterprise system integration and solution design side. He's passionate about driving customer success through innovation and collaboration and continuous improvement. And his hobby is he grew up playing football also, and he's a gadget enthusiast. So thank you, and please help me welcome Atsuya Yamakawa-san. Maybe I gave a very brief introduction about yourself. But if you could maybe touch on what you do at each of your respective companies, and also like highlight some of the products that you offer and the value that you offer to companies, so that people understand really more about your business. That would be great. Maybe Shingo-san, would you like to start?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Fabian. So I'm glad to be here today. So I'm Shingo. I worked as a principal solution architect at Red Hat. So I hope so you know the Red Hat. So have you ever known the Red Hat or called the Red Hat? Yeah, I really appreciate it. So yeah, we are providing the enterprise grade open source software for the business or for the enterprise. So we don't just provide the technology or just open source tools. So we contribute the platform. So platform is just about the enterprise to ensure that their flexibility or their stability. So to across the any hybrid cloud or any specific cloud. So our vision is help the customer to optimize their legacy platform to the cloud services. So this is our way. So, but mainly, so we focusing on the open source. So we just wanna go using the open source to flexibility to the your stability for your operation. So this is our vision. So today, so I'd like to share my experience or any kind of any perspective for the SI vendor or my experience as a user spaces. Thank you.
Leo?
Thank you. Leo Linder with Emerge AI. Our organization's single mission is to advance our clients' commercial ventures, because we do believe that solutions are there to support the organization and to deliver on the business promise that it has to their constituents. So a company's promise to its clients is really played out through its technical innovation and its ability to execute. So we consider growth the standard. So if the business is growing and thriving, then the technology is doing its job. So we've mapped our solutions and software around go-to-market strategies so that our customers can get to market, execute, and be ready for the next technical innovation. So we'll talk a little bit more about the business life cycle, about how transformation will drive growth cycles, and growth cycles will then run the business or optimization cycles. So Emerge AI is specifically designed for AI adoption so that companies can get in, understand AI in a safe, secure way using open standards and what we really consider one of the most important opportunities, and that is data portability. There is, at this point, a fissure in what was the SaaS revolution for the last 15 to 20 years. We believe right now we have an opportunity to reclaim our data and reorganize our thoughts around how we structure solutions and the ultimate growth of our business.
Thank you. Matsuya-san?
Yep. Thank you for the introduction, Fabian-san. My name is Atsuya Yamakawa. Today I'm honored to speak at this event. I'm a senior solutions consultant at Wokato Japan. So I'm doing the pre-sales activities in Wokato. I've been in this company for more than 6 years now, and I first started my career as an intern at Wokato. And in fact, I was a second hire in Wokato Japan, and then right now we are at the team of maybe like around 40 people. And Fabian, if you go to the slide, I can talk a little bit about the Wokato's solution. But Wokato is the enterprise orchestration platform. So our strength is around connecting to various business applications via APIs. Wokato is the one to kind of integrate and automate some of your business processes by connecting to your data and your systems and people and also AI. You can build these kind of integrations and automations in the no-code, low-code manner so that the IT engineers are not going to be the bottleneck of actually delivering these automations and processes to your organizations. And especially in this era of AI, we are really focusing on kind of enabling AIs to connect to your business applications because AIs doesn't have your business context, right? It has this intelligence, but you have to make the AI accessible to your data in order to, AI to kind of expect outcomes that really matters to your business. So that's, Workato as a service in a nutshell. Thank you for the opportunity to inviting me to this event.
Thank you. Thank you. Great. So I think all of us are here today to learn a little bit more about, what solution architects needs to learn and, to improve their skills and to really stay efficient in their jobs. But before that, I think it's important to understand really after COVID, especially in Japan, like there's been a lot of digital transformation and everything has been accelerating. AI is really, how do you say, aggressively, being implemented in Japan. Customers are becoming more and more demanding as well. But after COVID, really, what have you noticed, like in terms of change, and it could be a challenge as well, but what has transformed the way your solution architects are working now? If you can maybe touch on that. So, Shingo-san, would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a good point that we are involved in the very complex demand. So that means the biggest challenge isn't just for the technology. So I think it's caused by the uncertain choices. So that means we have a lot of the choices. So we can use any cloud or any tools or any also the SaaS applications, something like that. So we are involved into the growth, the complexity. So from the AI, so using the any hybrid cloud. So as for the developer, as for the operators, so they are making a lot of the choices. So it's a very important thing, but it's a little bit tough to choose. So this is our struggling point. So that means the challenge for the solution architect is that to help the customer to manage this complexity. This is the way for us to optimize their platform. So I think the SA is a new role for this AI era or hybrid cloud era. So customers are very anxious, right? So at that moment, so a solution architect has a responsibility. So shifting from the design phase or like architecting or something like that, so, but to the building the relationship of the safety for the customers. So this is an important thing to optimize their platform with the safety. So the architect, the trust as much as we architect the infrastructure. So this is our solution or our role or responsibility to optimize their platform. So I think that we have to focusing on this complexity.
I think for us, the first thing we look at is the psychology of the people involved and the organization itself, because we have to better understand at what phase of the business life cycle. So if you think about how a business matures, there's usually a transformative moment. Whether it's AI, we're in the middle of a multi-decade, if not a lifetime transformational moment, right? So at the top, that transformational moment is usually a moment of, and I can tell you firsthand, of if you have a C in front of your title, it's a moment of panic, right? Quiet panic, because you never want to let everybody know that, hey, AI has just eaten 50% of our domain, right? All of our competitors are ahead of us from a technological standpoint. What are we going to do? So that transformative moment can be very positive or can be very negative. And depending on where you're at in your life cycle or where you fall industry-wise, you have to understand how to define your new normal and grow. And when we're developing a solution for an organization that's ahead of the curve, it's a very different conversation than somebody that may be behind the curve. Or, for instance, when we worked with law firms, their site to go from a transformative moment to selling, to running and optimizing their business is very different. That timeline is very different than, for instance, last week I was in Bangalore talking to Machani's AI robotics lab that is putting out a humanoid robot to be a fantastic companion to seniors. Right? Their cycle is different. And I think adjusting our solutions to understand how quickly and how durable they have to last. Because as we look at the majority of our solutions, many of them are moving to the edge. The edge is back in fashion because there's plenty of GPU and robots that are on the edge that are gonna go unused. So how do we create micro models to pull some of that pre-training and training load off? And really readdress that reinforcement learning loop that's happening in the cloud. So I think as we juggle all of those variables, go back to the basics. Who are we delivering the solution for? How urgent is the solution for the business? And are we delivering email or are we delivering the next generation product that's going to allow that company to survive?
Yeah, from my point of view, as someone that speaks to customers a lot, and I think there's a lot of hype in this AI trend, and everyone's mind is blown on how intelligent AI is, and but I think like the biggest misconception that people might have is that AI can solve anything, right? If I want to apply AI to this to solve this problem, so the problem is not that easy, actually. AI actually has the intelligence, but you have to be mindful that AI doesn't have your business context. For example, if you ask AI how our companies operates or how our company does our business, they cannot have the answer. And the AI doesn't know how the approval workflows work in your organizations. They don't know where the customer data sits inside. So you have to bring the right context to the AI for the AI to be able to output an actual meaningful outcomes. And I think this is where we as solution architects needs to really chime in. And even before AI came in, we were the ones that's going to connect the technology with business value. So we understand both technology and how business is run, and we're the ones that guide the customers how to use our product or service or whatever technology to be able for the customers to have actual tangible outcomes. So I think this has been more important than ever. Because there's a lot of things that AI can do, but versus that there's so much gap between what AI should be doing, and AI is capable of doing a lot of things, but if you bring this to your company, it doesn't mean that you gain you have your revenue 2x 3x. No, that doesn't happen. So you have to really design, and this is where human has to come in because how AI can be applied to your business, this doesn't, AI cannot solve that problem. We are the ones who's going to design and implement how AI can, work for your organization. And, it's like hiring a new, fresh graduate, right? Very smart, very intelligent fresh graduate. If you hire 500 super intelligent fresh graduates, it doesn't mean that your business is going to grow 2x, 3x. You have to train those fresh graduates to be able to do the work that they you want them to do. So that's where we as SA needs to work with a customer to kind of design and architect how we should apply technology to their business.
Thank you. I feel it's really interesting, right? I mean, before we were, from what I understand, it was very much about the product and the technology, right? And the customers were coming to choose, okay, this is the closest to what I need for my business, so I'll go for that. But now, because of all the things that we can do with AI and all the solutions that are available that can be connected, then it seems like the shift has been going to the customers as a main goal, right? And now you have to, figure out really which solution with which other solution connected together can meet the needs of the customer, right? So that's where the complexity goes. So I don't know, but it feels like a lot of things can go wrong now because there's things that are not always controlled by your own company because you're collaborating with a lot of other partners. So maybe would you like to share not necessarily your mistakes but maybe mistakes or things that maybe some clients have done wrong and what you've learned in the process?
So I think the first key learning for us was the learning that is overly evident in hindsight, that AI is largely a probabilistic system and not deterministic. Meaning if you're running a query against a database, you can pretty much precisely say my bank account balance is X, Y, or Z, hopefully greater, not smaller, and not starting with red numbers or a negative. But the idea is that in the world of AI, everybody wants to use human language. It's the new programming language. Yes, I'm very excited about all the ability to vibe code and to have ordinary business users rip out a couple thousand lines of unvarnished code and let it run against our corporate data stores. That's fantastic. It's nerve-wracking, but fantastic. So I'm somewhat joking, but the idea is that I do understand that at least in our future, there's $800 billion being invested in the U.S. in CapEx, and it represents about 2% of GDP. Somebody's going to be on the hook for some sort of innovation, and that innovation is going to fail. And when it fails, we have to make sure we fail fast and we fail in corridors that doesn't hurt the business. So we've been in multiple scenarios where we tried to get AI to do things that were deterministic, that were based on precision. And largely because we had a misunderstanding of how roles got reshuffled with AI. All of a sudden we can have a UI or a UX engineer ripping out code, and we have data science and researchers developing UIs. So all of a sudden, if everybody has every capability, we have to reformat our teams and understand what are the corridors that we're going to work in so that there are some safety guidelines about who's writing what code, what it is from a safety perspective, not only from a security perspective, but also from a cultural acceptance perspective. Because if I use the very, very powerful context window at this point now to become a persona, that persona is now live in my organization. So all of these things have essentially stacked up to be a series of awareness points and not necessarily failures yet. Luckily, we haven't seen any dramatic failures other than a few instances of OpenClaw. I'm sure there's a lot of you out there experimenting with OpenClaw, so just watch your API keys. But for the most part, there hasn't been a lot of damage, but there's been a lot of key learnings and a lot of people reorganizing teams based on capabilities and intent.
Yeah, maybe I can touch on our day-to-day communications with customers as solution architects. One of the things that I used to do a lot, and today I still do these mistakes, but I think the number one mistake that we should always be cautious of is jumping into the solution without proper discovery. Because sometimes we talk to our customers or prospects, and they might have something like, hey, do you have this ABC feature or XYZ function or something like that? And as an engineer or as a technical person, and someone who loves our product, we typically our instinction is jumping in and then saying yes, and trying to show our features and capabilities. Hey, we can do this and that, and we have this feature, and we get excited about showing those features, right? But at this point, I think we need to pause for a moment, and always ask why you want to do that. There's this quote that some people might have heard before, but he who buys a shovel does not want a shovel. He wants to dig a hole. But he who wants to dig a hole doesn't want a hole. They want to put on a fence or plant a tree. And he who wants to plant a tree or put on a fence doesn't want a fence or a tree. They actually need privacy, or they might even want shade because it's too hot. Or maybe even, they even want to have a garden or something, right? So whenever customer asks you a question, I'm trying to be mindful of asking, why do you want to do that? What is your end goal of having that feature or function? And also, what kind of business impact are you expecting by becoming that desired state? And this happens even more in the AI era because a lot of the people in the the companies are pressured by managers or like C-level executives by using AI, right? Let's use AI. We need to adopt AI, and they feel a lot of pressure. So when we talk to customers, typically a lot of people ask, do you have AI features, or what can you do with AI? But we need to pause for a moment before we present our solution. We need to ask what are you expecting, or what kind of goal are you trying to achieve? Because at the end of the day, we are the ones that shouldn't be like a product expertise, right? We are the ones who's going to guide the customers by using our product. So we always have to understand where we are heading to, because if we don't know where we're heading, there's no way we can guide correctly. So what I'm trying to be very mindful every time I talk to my customer is to ask, why do you want to do that?
Thank you, Atsuya-san. This is a great point. I mean, you really have to be a good listener and ask the right questions to really figure out what the customer's needs, right? So we've touched on some of the mistakes and some of the challenges, but now let's talk about the fun stuff and really what works, if there is it. So I'd like to ask you if you could share with us the most impactful best practice you've seen, whether it is a tool that is really useful and that has helped your team, a new technology, or if it's maybe a mindset or a different way to collaborate, so that people in the audience can come back with something and be like, oh, this is good, I'll try that from tomorrow.
Yeah, good point. So I think everyone want to know the best practice, right? So, but I think this is the way that we need to find the ability to establish the relationship, as I said. So with the customer or with the clients, so before discussing for the implementation, so we are just focusing on the so implementing the product or implementing the AI or any services. So, but we just focus on the relationship with the customer. This is the best way to connect or to go forward their ability. So I think the successful SAS that I seen, so don't just sell the product. So they just only promote their culture or their collaboration with the customer. So they teach the enterprise team or their clients of the collaboration how to work like the open culture. So have you ever seen the open culture? So so why do we need to create this product or these services? And next, how to implement this product or any specific feature. So with the meritocracy. So and what we need to do. So this is the way. So we have to be a catalyst between the client and the business side and of course the technology. So this is our vision that so Red Hat has a practical program. So I'm a SA, so a principal SA. So Red Hat has a lot of the role. So of course, so in the SA side, so of course, so there are the junior SA to the principal SA. So this is the main story that, but we are focusing on the technology side to the customers needed. So that means so. When we are the junior SA, so we are just focusing on the specific the tool or specific the detail about the future. So, but promoting our solution architect, so we are focusing on the customer's needs. So, of course, included in the how to how to make the relationship with the clients. So, at that moment, we need to push up the mindset, right? So so no one want to be the principal at the moment. So because we need to customize by myself. So that means to foster my mindset with the program. So Red Hat provide the TTL program, which called as a Technology Thought Leadership Accelerator program. So this is a best way to accelerate my mindset to be the customer focused mindset. So I think this is the best way to optimize my mindset, and I'm really appreciate this course or program to be the next level. So and so. Our best essay is empower the customer to become a champion. So champion is one of our followers, right? So I realized the leadership is to foster the followers to admire our mindset. So this is a way to enhance our mindset with the program. So Red Hat is a very nice company to share this program, and we can also joining this program by myself. So it's a very good way to promote and to accelerate by myself. So this is a good company for us. Yeah.
Thank you. Leo?
I think there's two things that come to mind. And the first is really understanding the models that we're using and the purpose, specifically as it pertains to AI. Because when I think about the different uses, I mean, I was just, literally last night I was sitting around and I heard that Sonnet 4.6 had over 1 billion parameters, right? 1 million token context window that absolutely reshapes the thinking as to whether or not I'm using a sophisticated model that I can load with instructions from the organization, from the project. We can do some pre-processing on that context window before the user even touches it. And then, by the way, after the user enters whatever they need to enter, how are we going to clean it up, check it for compliance, make sure there's no PII in it, right? So there's a lot of processing that goes around that context window. And the larger that context window gets, you can really start to push the envelope as to whether or not there's actually learning going on. Of course, because that is a very volatile part of the memory stack, you can pull some learning out of it. But if you need to be light and fast and on the edge, when you're using something like Tiny Llama that's got 2048 tokens to work with, you've got an entirely different problem set, right? So as we push to the edge, I think we're going to have different considerations on how we manage compliance and how we, really work with the intelligence that is in our pre-trained models and reinforced learning combined with our context learning. So it's a little bit of what we consider a center of excellence mapping exercise. So we essentially make sure we bring everybody in our organization together and say, okay, if we're going to roll this out, this particular model in this context for this software, here's where the data sits. Here's what we expect to have in context. Here's how we're going to check our context. And by the way, here's how we're going to remediate and ensure that there's learning involved, even if it happens in a volatile part of the memory, right? So I think the takeaway is a COE has a couple components. So number one is the context, the cost, the creativity, and the complexity. So if I said that too fast, just go to your favorite AI window and say, give me all the C words. And that's what we try to use as a mnemonic device to say, that is how I think we can create some collaboration among our, everything from our research and data scientists all the way through the AI stack down to solutions, network, and ultimately where those memories live in storage. Just a super quick micro story is we were able to leverage this scenario in that we had over 300,000 resumes for one of our clients that we were working with. And, they were all, literally sitting in a state that we wanted to use AI in and who wanted to have a very sophisticated engagement with those. The users wanted to be able to chat with 300,000 resumes all at once. Well, to move that data around was very, very cumbersome. So the solution was actually quite interesting. We actually wound up discarding all of them because they're not necessary. You could actually regenerate those if you ever need them. So you pull the metadata out of them. So we only discovered that by blowing up a few context windows and machines and getting a few bills from our favorite hyperscaler that had more zeros on it than I care to admit to. So I think those key learnings of understanding, hey, we're not going to solve AI problems the way we solved networking problems in the past, right? Because those bills are going to come hard and fast, and every token costs money. And at the end of the day, it's no longer a networking or a data or security problem. It's an everything problem. So,
I think from my point of view, right, I think Kitayama-san made a very good point on, instead of selling the product, our mission is to really sell the value that we provide to the customer, right? And one best practice, or something that I constantly do in myself is always pass the so what test. And what is the so what test? So every time you make a presentation or conduct a demo to the customer, or every screen or every click or every feature that you show, I ask myself, so what? Why should I matter? And this kind of brings to your it lets you dive deeper into what is it about, and how it matters to the customer. And for example, right? So Workato has this feature called error monitoring. When I introduce this to the customer, I usually talk Workato has this error monitoring feature. You can wrap certain steps of the automated process, and whenever an error happens to that, you can apply specific procedures for that. And then I ask myself, so what? Why should I matter of that? And then my next answer will be, so whenever I identify an error, you can kind of set a procedure to do auto recovery, or even notifying the right people, such as the admin of the IT or something, and then that's going to be automatically done on Workato side. And then I ask myself again, so what? Why should I matter? And the next answer will probably be Workato does the work for you. It's going to automate your work, and whenever we hit an error, Workato will send out a notification to you so that you don't have to monitor your dashboard 24/7. And at that point, I think we are starting to touch on the actual value of that feature, because the error monitoring will proactively let the people know. So that means that less operational cost or management effort. So that's where we start to kind of convert these into actual money or even like manpowers of hours, right? And that's going to tie the actual money into the future. So every time I prepare something or like do some presentation to the customer, I always during the preparation I ask myself, and also when I'm talking to the customer, I constantly try to think, is this tied to an actual money or actual value, or how can this actually make the company better in terms of the customer's company. So I think this is something this practice is actually coming from a book called the 6 Habits of Highly Effective Sales Engineers. The author is Chris White. I strongly recommend reading that book. But this is something that is, I feel like, very important because as I mentioned earlier, we need to stop explaining about the future, but start speaking to the business outcomes of the customer.
Thank you. This is really interesting, the way technology and AI is affecting the solution architecture profession itself. I feel at the same time AI is helping us all. I mean, I can see some similarities in my own sector, but it seems like AI is really helping you to achieve so much faster, but at the same time it adds this level of complexity that can be, so now I'm pretty sure companies are expecting us so much more of their solution architect in terms of skills, right? You need not just tech now, you need the sales, you need the business acumen, you need the compliance, you need the different mentality, right? So you were talking, I want to make sure the discovery first mindset, right? That's what you were mentioning. So it can be quite, I would expect it can be quite overwhelming for people to feel like, okay, how am I going to be able to understand and cover all this? So to make sure we just have a few more minutes, so I just want to make sure we finish on a positive note and a constructive tip here. What would you recommend to sales engineers that are here today on how they can deal with this and something that they can act upon tomorrow? Or maybe what would you say to maybe somebody that joins your team next week? Something like that.
Yeah, thank you. My point is that just for the making the grid. So have you ever seen the Anjali TikTok? So I loved her very good video. So she said that we need to have a grid. So grid is just only for the passion and the progression. So I think that keep challenging ourselves. So while focusing on your strengths. So even if that's a small thing. So when the sales or customers so requires your help. So at that moment, so we should be willing to follow them, and we need to hear their request. So just say that how can I help you? So that's it. So I think it's an important thing. The attitude that would help or would lead to the leadership as a future SA. That's it.
Thank you.
For us, it's becoming an AI-first organization by understanding what it is that our prompt methodology is, so that when we create our digital twins, there's some consistency there. Jeff Wood, Sandeep Pradesh, there's lots of guys out there with people out there with fantastic different prompt constructs. For us, it's really understanding the profile. Okay, what profile do we want AI to play? What profile am I playing? Tell me about our client. What sort of behavioral understanding do we have about the client? Then really let's talk about the objectives. What are we trying to do? We're trying to create a new solution. I'm trying to get this certified. I've got a Cisco CAI Edge product. I've got this, that, the other. I've got this software. Don't forget the strategic plays between the organizations, right? Okay. okay, so one company might not play nice with another, or I've got two storage providers. I've got, maybe Vast and Cumulo that provide similar but overlapping offerings, right? So I put all of that in under different profiles. Then I understand the objective. What are we trying to achieve? A commercial outcome, a technical outcome, and then what's the work that I'm asking for? What am I asking for? A solution? Am I asking you to be a strategic thought partner? So I give us very specific assignment to our AI, and if we can promote that within at least in our organization, as we promoted that and we start to use a common framework for prompting, then we can get more usable data to be able to go back and create memories and ultimately sources of truth for developing solutions and running our business. Because otherwise, we'll wind up with sort of this basket of information that we don't really know how to sort through.
Thank you.
So I think especially the advice that I would give to like junior solution architects is this is something that I was told early in my career as well, but I would always tell them to always carry yourself with confidence, and of course every essay starts with it's impossible to like knowing everything at the beginning of your career. It's supernatural to not knowing everything, and in my opinion, it's okay to say I don't know, even in front of customers, because it's way better than to say like maybe it's something like that, or I think this is this. It's way better to just say it. Let me take this offline and then get back to you, because that's you have to tell the truth to the customer, and you have to be honest. And it's really about building the trust between the customers. The key difference between us SAs and typically we work with the sales reps, right? We tag together to sell the product to the customer. And the key difference between the sales rep and us is that the most biggest fear that we have for the sales reps is definitely losing the deal. Not closing the deal is definitely the fear that they have. But for us, it's not losing the deal, but it's losing the trust and also like the credibility. It's very hard to kind of regain the credibility once you lose it. And because we know the technology, and technology is always about facts, we have to tell the truth and be honest about what we're talking about. So I think it's okay to say, I don't know, and that's way better than to lose credits. And I think at the end of the day, I've been mentioning this a lot of times, but becoming the trusted advisor for the customer is like the key, especially in this highly demanding and changing era. But this still remains true in the AI era, because business decisions will be done by human at the end of the day. So we need to build trust. We need to have the relationships with the people, even with AI becoming like most part of the business. So I think this is something that I will always tell any essays that I work with.
Thank you. Thank you very much to the three of you. Please help me give a round of applause to thank our panelists today. So I'm very sorry. I thought that we would have maybe a little bit of time for a Q&A, but unfortunately we have to leave this room for the next session. So, but again, we will be able to continue the conversation over there in the networking area. So please stick around. And so just again, thank you so much for sharing all your great insights. And we're looking forward to the next session, which starts in a few minutes.